Hello, this is Mrs. Gonzalez thanking you for joining us for this week's SEL Spotlight on speaking. I want to take you back a little bit. Do you remember this from last week's SEL Spotlight? It's our communication equation. Today we're focusing on this part of the communication equation, which is the speaker. I want you to imagine a shirt or a song that you especially like. How would you describe this shirt to a friend if you could only use one word? Think about it. How would you describe this shirt or song that you really like to a friend using just that one word? You probably would use a word like cool, maybe. I'm gonna go, guess. And it matters what word you use. Everyone knows what the word cool means, for example, because everyone uses it to mean the same thing. Do you think people will ever use a different word for that intended meaning? So you think people will use another word for what we know to mean cool? Yes? No? Maybe so? Well, when I was young, a long time ago, we used phrases like, believe it or not, we used groovy, we used not, bogus, rad, and talk to the hand. Oh yes, those were the words and phrases that we used to use. And for some of you, it may sound strange to hear some of those phrases or words nowadays because they're not that common, right? So think of the popular words and phrases that you use today. And take a moment to pause this video. I want to know, what are the words that you're using today? Post your responses in the video comments below. Did you post your popular words and phrases in the video comments already? Now, I ask you to make some predictions regarding those words and phrases you posted. Do you think they will still be popular, say, 20 years from now, or do you think they'll pass? What do you think your word choice says about you? Kind of shifting a little bit. If you guess that what you say gives people an impression about you, you would be correct. If I told you that, here, follow along with me. If I said something like, today, I can't look ratchet because my bae is coming to see me, but I also don't want to look extra. You might have understood what I said, but you would very likely find it odd, right? And if you were just meeting me for the first time, you might be inclined to not give me as much respect if you heard me speaking that way as an adult in my position, right? So think of a friend or a family member that uses a lot of academic words. What impression does that person give to others? I hope that you can see that you have the power to influence what people think about you and how they approach you by using your words carefully. Yep. In fact, different words are appropriate in different settings. In the communication world, we call these registers, meaning a set of words that's okay to use when you're around friends or okay to use only when you're mainly around people that, like your schoolmates or your teacher. So it's important to know how to use language that's appropriate for the situation. And my hope is that by the end of today's spotlight, or with today's spotlight, it helps you learn to use words appropriately. So I'm going to share a story to kind of illustrate the power that we have with our words. So listen carefully. Susie and Thomas are talking one morning. They don't see Mike standing behind them. Susie says to Thomas, "You want to do something after school today?" "I sort of told Mike I'd do something with him," says Thomas. "Mike? He's such a jerk," says Susie, "and he dresses like such a dork." "Oh yeah?" says Thomas. "Well, I better be going. Bye." Later that day in the gym, Susie waves and runs up to Mike. But Mike walks away, pretending not to see her. "What's wrong with him?" Susie says loudly. "What a jerk." Why do you think Mike avoided Susie in the gym? Suppose you were in that gym and saw what happened between Mike and Susie. Would you side with Susie? Why or why not? Who was responsible for what happened in the gym? Mike or Susie? I would think, they all kind of share a little bit of responsibility, but mainly Susie is responsible because of what she said earlier that day, in my opinion. And what were the consequences of Susie's words in the beginning of the story? What about her words in the gym? At first, only Thomas and Mike heard Susie's comment, right? And it hurt Mike's feelings, as we could see from the story. Everyone in the gym then heard Susie's comment, and it could affect how other people see Susie or Mike, right? One is a victim, one is the agitator, but they don't have the full story. So do you think Susie realized the power of her words? Why or why not? What about Thomas? How do you think he handled himself? Thomas did not defend his friend, Mike, right? So what do you think would have happened if Thomas had defended Mike? You have the power to speak or not to speak. You have the power to choose what you say and to whom you speak. So be careful and think about the consequences of your words. You must take responsibility for them. And remember that the words that come out of your mouth are yours alone. And knowing that we have the power to choose our words and that our words can have powerful consequences, let's rewrite this story that we just heard about Thomas, Susie, and Mike. When Thomas tells Susie that he's planning to do something with Mike after school, right? Instead of Susie responding with something that was hurtful, what if she responded with something that didn't cause any messes, like, "Oh, can I come?" And maybe an appropriate response would have been, "Let's talk to Mike and see if it would be okay with him." How different would things be then? What about when Susie calls Mike a jerk and says that he dresses like a dork? What if Thomas, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, well, I better be going, bye," what if he said something that would hurt Mike's feelings? Something like, "Yeah, he is. Maybe I'll just ditch him after school." How different would things be then? That could possibly end their friendship, right? What about when Mike, when he walks away from Susie and Susie calls him a name in the gym? Instead of calling him that name, what if she could have done something to avoid making things worse? She could have said something like, "Hey, Mike, what's up?" She could have followed after him, right, to ask what was going on. So here we are again with our communication equation. Who do you think is the most important or the most powerful person in this equation? Is it the speaker or the listener? I'm going to leave that up to you, but I will reiterate from last week is that in order for communication to occur, we must have both components, the speaker and the listener. And I do also want to leave you with 2 final points. Number 1, words are very powerful, so use them wisely. You have the option to speak or not to speak and what to speak, okay? Number 2, you must take responsibility for your words because they belong to you and you alone. And sometimes we'll goof, and that's okay. We're human. We reflect. We do things to avoid that happening again. And we will have to apologize in some cases, right? So I do want to thank you for joining us in today's SEL Spotlight.